we're not daft. We know the potential that the kid's got.
What about Vinny? Now, over the past 24 hours, Alex, Vinny Jr. has been linked with Arsenal. Is this just posturing? Is this just someone in his camp linking him with others so he can get a better deal to stay at Real Madrid? He's got a year left. What are you hearing about the future of Vinny Jr. at Real Madrid?
Yeah, we've been waiting for something to happen with Vinny Jr. this summer because, like you say, the context, the all-important context, is the contract. The fact that there's a year to go, the fact there's been no progress for months or even years now in terms of a renewal. We were being told all the way through last season, there won't be any renewal talks. This was coming from the players camp until after the World Cup. Of course, it is now after the World Cup. Vinny is due to be back in Madrid, back at Valdebebas, back potentially in training from next week. And so we've been expecting something to happen because what we know is that Real Madrid are not going to want to be in a situation where they're going into the last year of the contract with no progress. Real Madrid cannot afford to risk losing him on a free transfer next summer. So we've been expecting something to happen. And this Arsenal interest came a little bit out of the blue. What I can tell you is that some of my colleagues at ESPN have been told that Arsenal are viewed within Real Madrid as one of the only kind of half plausible destinations for Vinícius Jr. if he were to leave this summer, because there aren't that many options. I think the difficulty for Arsenal would be the money. Remember, there's been no agreement on a contract at Madrid because they can't reach an agreement on the money. Vinny's ask is pretty significant, and there's been a big gap between what Madrid are willing to offer and what Vinny wants, and Arsenal couldn't really get near to that either. And remember as well that Vinny holds all the cards, because Vinny has been happy, and the messaging from his camp has been, we're happy to let this go into next season. We're not in a hurry. Let's see what happens, knowing that their player is in a position of strength and holds all the cards. So let's see. It does seem like a bit of posturing. It does seem like both parties kind of maneuvering and trying to put themselves into a strong position. I think something has to happen because, like I say, Madrid, I don't know about they won't allow him to go into the last season without a deal, but not far off that. The ideal scenario for Madrid is that he signs a new contract, but are they willing to stretch, the wages to go to a place that he's happy with? So we were expecting something, but like I say, the specific interest from Arsenal, and our understanding is that Arsenal are, they've sort of looked at this, they potentially interested, and they're looking at, could we possibly make this work within our wage structure? But yeah, the fact that something's happened with Vinny doesn't come as a surprise, I think.
Don, 160 million, the reported fee, no less, depending on who you believe. Wages upwards of $500,000 a week. He's just turned 26. Look, he's going to be an asset for any club. But is Vinny Jr. and Arsenal a good fit?
He's a good fit for anyone. He walks into any team. I think the biggest question Jose will have when he sits down with Vinny Jr. is he look him in the eyes and say, right, do you want to stay? Do you want to play under me? Are you willing to work backwards if I ask you to? Are you willing to play in a different position if I ask you to and I demand you to? Are you going to be a team player? And if Jose looks in his eyes and he's sincere in his answer, then I think we're looking at a scenario where, well done, the agent. This is a situation that's happened many a time over the years, where an agent just brings the likes of Arsenal in. Apparently, Alex might know if this is any truth or not, but apparently got offered to Liverpool. Liverpool said no. I think it's a classic case of the agent bringing one or two sides into Jose, into Real Madrid and Florentino Perez. This time next week, you'll probably see Vinny Jr. sign a new deal at Real Madrid. That's the way I think this is going to play out.
Oh, you old cynic.
No, dude, this is true. That's what we used to do. That's what we used to do when I was leaving clubs. When I was leaving Everton, my agent's job was to bring as many to the table as possible. He got me 4 clubs to choose from. Ended up signing for Sunderland. That's the role of your agent. You've got to try and drum up interest, and Premier League is where the money's at. So if you want to be a potential contender at Real Madrid, and you can say Arsenal are here, Liverpool are here, PSG are here, all the big sides are here. If you don't want him, Saudi's a possibility. And then Real Madrid go, actually, he's one of the most amazing players in the world. Let's give him what he wants. But Jose will have a big say in it.
You just need one club.
Arsenal ready to shock the world. £164 million Vinícius Jr. blockbuster transfer explained. Arsenal could be preparing one of the biggest transfer moves in Premier League history, with sensational reports linking the Gunners with a massive bid for Real Madrid superstar Vinícius Jr. Could Mikel Arteta really bring the Brazilian winger to the Emirates Stadium? With speculation surrounding Vinícius' future at Real Madrid and a potential price tag of around €160 million, Arsenal may have a huge decision to make. In this video, we explore the latest transfer rumors, the reported Arsenal interest, Real Madrid's position, and what a blockbuster Vinícius Jr move could mean for the Gunners, Arsenal and the Vinícius Jr transfer bombshell. Arsenal supporters have become accustomed to seeing their club linked with some of the biggest names in world football, but few transfer rumors would generate as much excitement as a potential move for Vinícius Jr. The Brazilian superstar has established himself as one of the most dangerous attacking players in world football. His incredible pace, explosive dribbling, creativity and ability to produce decisive moments have made him a key figure at Real Madrid. Now, speculation is beginning to grow around the possibility of Arsenal making an extraordinary attempt to sign him. Reports circulating around the transfer market have suggested that Arsenal could be prepared to make a massive investment to bring Vinícius to the Premier League. Figures as high as £164 million have been mentioned in the rumour mill, which would represent an extraordinary statement of ambition from the North London club. However, it is important to emphasise that there has been no confirmed official announcement that Arsenal have submitted such a bid or Vinícius is close to joining the Gunners. At this stage, the story should be viewed as transfer speculation. But if Arsenal were genuinely considering a move of this magnitude, it would immediately become one of the biggest stories of the summer. Why would Arsenal want Vinícius? From Mikel Arteta's perspective, it is easy to understand why Vinícius would be an attractive target. Arsenal have developed into one of the strongest teams in England under Arteta, but the club continues to search for ways to improve its attacking options and compete at the highest level. Vinícius could completely transform Arsenal's attack. The Brazilian is at his best when operating from the left side, where he can receive the ball, attack defenders one-on-one and create opportunities for himself and his teammates. Imagine Vinícius playing alongside Bukayo Saka. The idea alone would be enough to excite Arsenal fans. Saka provides Arsenal with a world-class threat from the right wing, while Vinícius could offer similar danger from the opposite side. With both players capable of beating defenders and creating chances, Arsenal would potentially have one of the most frightening wide attacking partnerships in European football. Add a top-class striker into the equation, and Arteta could have an attacking trio capable of competing with the best teams in the Champions League. That is why a player of Vinícius' quality would represent much more than just another signing. It would be a statement. The Real Madrid problem. The biggest obstacle would obviously be Real Madrid. Vinícius is not an ordinary player. He is one of the faces of the club and has played a major role in Real Madrid's success in recent years. The Spanish giants have historically been extremely reluctant to sell their biggest stars, particularly when those players remain central to the club's plans. That means Arsenal would need to convince both the player and Real Madrid. The situation becomes even more complicated when you consider the potential transfer fee. A reported price of around €160 million would put Vinícius among the most expensive players in football history. If Arsenal were to pay a fee close to £164 million, it would potentially become a record transfer for the club. That would be an enormous financial commitment. Arsenal's recruitment strategy in recent years has focused on signing talented players who can grow and develop within Arteta's system. Vinícius, however, would represent a different type of investment. He would arrive as an established global superstar. The question is whether Arsenal would be willing to completely change their financial approach to make such a deal possible. Could Arsenal break their transfer record? Arsenal have demonstrated a willingness to spend significant amounts of money when they believe a player can transform the team. However, a deal for Vinícius would be on another level. A transfer fee of £164 million would require Arsenal to make a major financial commitment, while the player's wages could also create another challenge. One of the reasons the transfer would be so difficult is Arsenal's wage structure. Signing a superstar of Vinícius' status would likely require a salary package that reflects his position among the world's elite players. That could create a difficult situation for Arsenal's hierarchy. The club would need to consider whether giving one player an enormous contract could affect the balance of the squad. Arsenal already have several important players who will expect competitive wages, and any major change to the structure could have consequences. Nevertheless, if Arteta and sporting director Andrea Berta believed Vinícius was the missing piece in Arsenal's quest for major trophies, the club could potentially decide that the investment was worthwhile. What about the managerial situation? Another fascinating part of the speculation surrounds Real Madrid's plans for the future. Rumors have suggested that José Mourinho could play a role in attempting to prevent a potential departure if he were involved in the club's sporting plans. However, supporters should be cautious with such claims because managerial situations and transfer rumors can change quickly, and there is no guarantee that any reported scenario will become reality. Ultimately, the decision over Vinícius' future would depend on several factors. The player's wishes would be crucial. Real Madrid's valuation would be equally important. And Arsenal would need to decide whether they were prepared to spend an unprecedented amount of money. If Vinícius wanted to remain in Madrid, Arsenal's task would become extremely difficult. But if the Brazilian were genuinely open to a new challenge in England, the situation could become much more interesting. Could Vinícius actually move to Arsenal? At the moment, a transfer remains highly speculative. There is a huge difference between Arsenal being interested in a player and actually completing a £164 million deal. Transfer reports often develop rapidly, with different sources providing different versions of events. Therefore, Arsenal fans should wait for reliable confirmation from trusted journalists and official club sources before treating the story as a done deal. But from a football perspective, it is certainly an exciting possibility to imagine. Vinícius would give Arsenal extraordinary pace, unpredictability and attacking quality. He could potentially take the Gunners to another level in the Premier League and Champions League. A front line featuring Vinícius and Saka would be a nightmare for defenders across Europe. The biggest question is whether Arsenal are prepared to take the financial risk required to make such a deal happen. Final verdict. The possibility of Arsenal making a record-breaking move for Vinícius Jr is the kind of transfer rumor that immediately captures the imagination of football fans. A potential £164 million investment would completely rewrite Arsenal's transfer record and demonstrate just how ambitious the club has become, but there are still enormous obstacles. Real Madrid would have to consider whether they were willing to lose one of their most important players. Vinícius would need to be convinced that Arsenal is the right destination. And Arsenal would need to decide whether breaking their wage structure and transfer record is justified. For now, the story remains firmly in the realm of speculation. However, if Arsenal were to genuinely launch a record bid for Vinícius Jr, it would send shockwaves throughout world football. The Brazilian superstar at the Emirates. Bukayo Saka on one wing, Vinícius Jr on the other. Mikel Arteta in the dugout. It sounds like a dream scenario for Arsenal supporters, but football's biggest transfers often begin with a dream before becoming reality. What do you think, Gunners? Would you spend £164 million to bring Vinícius Jr to Arsenal? Would he be the perfect signing for Mikel Arteta's team? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Arsenal Headquarters channel, and turn on notifications for more Arsenal transfer news and updates.